Hi, and half a day to all my friends and family in Guam. Life is good. I'm going to talk to you today about the 1/4" seam. That's the basis of all our piecing that we do for our quilts. If you're a sewer, which I'm not, you generally use a 1/2" seam, I believe, for garment sewing. And that's a good thing because you need them to be pretty strong. With quilts, you keep going over those seams in different directions and stuff in the final quilting and all. So it's pretty well reinforced that you don't have to use a 1/2" seam and get all that extra bulk in there. But let's talk about that 1/4" seam because it really gave me a lot of problems and I didn't realize what it was. But when I was making my pieced tops, putting together different cuts of fabric into a finished block or into an unfinished block and measuring it to block it, I usually would come out just right at that size and maybe one side a little bit short, just a bite off, and I never could understand it. Why was that happening? I'd see on the videos, I'd see people trimming those blocks and getting extra things off of that they trimmed off, and I had nothing to trim off most of the time. And sometimes my block was just a hair shorter than what they called for. So I happened to go to a workshop recently that was put on by Marci Baker. It was a great workshop. It was the tumbling blocks. In fact, these were the blocks that we made here. I think you can see. And they were a little bit challenging on the bias and such. I'm not sure that I'll do it again, not by myself anyway. But she had some tools that turned out to be very important. And one was it was the Q tool, which was made. It is has multiple purposes. Dog ears, if you've done anything with dog ears, help you to trim off dog ears, and corner cuts. But what I bought this for, and they can be in most of your quilt shops, you'll find this tool in most of your quilt shops, or you could go to quiltwithmarcibaker.com. I'll have that up later, and order this tool. If you can see a little bit here, are 3 lines here. One says minus 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, and plus 1/4 inch. And what that means is the minus is a scant 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch is a true 1/4 inch, and a 1/4 inch plus is a generous 1/4 inch. I found out at this workshop, most of your patterns that you cut from, the sizes from, use scant 1/4 inch. This is not written in most of your fabric, most of your patterns. So I started, in this class, this workshop, I used the 1/4 inch, and everything seemed to turn out quite well, measurement wise. So I've been using the scant 1/4 inch. That's what I meant. I think I said 1/4 inch. I used the scant 1/4 inch. She told us to use the scant 1/4 inch, and I've been using it ever since on things I've pieced together, and I've been very happy with it because now I have stuff to trim off when I go to trim my block off. So I'm going to show you how to use this tool to get a scant 1/4 inch seam on all your pieced tops. So I'll get it together right now. Okay, this is the Q tool. But let me show you something about my sewing machine. I have a reminder here that says adjust the needle because I need to change the position of the needles from time to time for my different widths. On your sewing machine, you have areas that show you the width that you can make for your seams, but it won't work for every position of the needle. So I'm a beginner, and when I started this, I would forget about adjusting the needle. I'd also forget which one was the width and which one was the length. And up here I wrote to remind myself that I want a scant 1/4 inch, so therefore I need to put my width on 7.0. my position for my needle on 7.0. And this is to remind me when I quilt or when I piece my tops, I want a stitch length of 1.5, which makes it very difficult when you start to unpick or take out those stitches. Anyway, I move my needle all the way over here because a scant 1/4 inch with this foot that I have would bring me right on the inside of this feed dog, or right on the feed dog, not over the feed dog. So I had to push my needle all the way over to show you what I mean. You can see it moving here and there, here and there. And 7.0 is as far as I can take it. So in order to get a scant 1/4 inch so that it is over both feed dogs, my fabric is over both feed dogs, I have to go and set my needle over to 7.0. By the way, this is Sharpies, permanent markers. And sometimes I make other notes up here for other reasons, which I'll get into another time, and those will change, like how many times I've used, how many bobbins I've used to let me know when I need to oil again, things like that. So I'll put those up here whenever or when I need to change my needle. I gauge it by how many bobbins I use. After 2 bobbins, I change my needle. And so I'll put my numbers up here sometimes to remind me. And the way you can get magic marker or Sharpie marker off of a permanent situation is to trace over it with an erasable marker, you know, the kind you use on a whiteboard. And that'll take these things off. You might have to do it a few times. That's some of the things you learn when you're a teacher. Anyway, let's get back to this great nifty tool. It's worth every penny and it's not very expensive. So you can see here, there's a 1/4 inch, scant 1/4 inch. See if I can bring that up a little bit. You can see it with that minus there. And this is a generous 1/4 inch down here with the plus. Why I want to set my needle up for the scant 1/4 inch. Now, this side here, you can feel where the line is gouged just slightly into the plexiglass. Make sure that's my 1/4 inch, scant 1/4 inch. I put it under here, and then I'm going to put my needle down right into that groove. And you have to be careful because you can tend to move your needle around in there, and that's not what you want to do. So I am looking, and I've got it. Now, you know, nothing's going to keep it going straight except you. So you've got to make sure. I usually line up and look at that feed dog under there and make sure that I've got the same distance at the top of the feed dog as I do at the bottom of the feed dog from the edge of this. And that's as far away as I'm going to get from that feed dog side there for a scant 1/4 inch, because I can't move my needle over any further. So what I do then, what comes with the tool are these nifty little thick pieces of plastic that are sticky on one side, and you cut what you need. Now I like to put not only here but also on the cover of my bobbin. The problem with that is I can't use a continuous piece because then I would have to take it off every time I'm changing the bobbin. So I cut a piece for the bottom and I push this bobbin cover one way or the other, whichever is best for you, you know, and I do mine this way towards my release. I pull it that way. And now I'm ready to put on, make sure my needle's straight, not being pushed here or there. And I have already cut my pieces here. So I'm going to put them on. Its fingers always get in the way, so that's kind of hard. But if you can nudge it up there, and then just a good little thing. You'll get it better after you get the piece out. And then I've got my smaller piece. I am pushing my plastic bobbin cover to the right in this case, and then I will put that down there. I like to have two because I like to feel the fabric up against this as I'm pushing it up here. I like to feel the fabric like that. So now I can put my foot back on. Makes it a lot easier if you have a machine that you're able to remove the foot and get it back on. So that's the 1/4 inch with the Q tool. Q tool from Marci Baker. You could look that up, Marci Baker, and comes with these pieces also. It'll last a good while. Now you can also use masking tape or painter's tape. Isn't as thick as these are, so you can really feel when you got fabric going in there, you know, that it's butted up there. You know, masking tape would be the same thing. So if you wanted to use a tape or something else, I don't know what else you might have to use on that, would be very helpful. If you have a bobbin case that's down below instead of up here, boom, you can make a nice long one. I've seen some that go down over the body of the sewing machine. But anyway, now we're going to check to see if I've placed these strips in the proper position for a scant 1/4 inch. Again, moving my needle over to the 7.0 position. I've got 2 pieces of fabric butted up against the tape, and now I'm going to go. You can see that first piece of fabric I had in there was not up against the tape, but it's just my leader and ender, or my start and beginner. Okay, and I'm going to put another leader in here so I don't get any bird's nests, in case you don't know what I'm doing here. All right, I'm going to take our test piece off. Got my Q tool here. There's my 1/4 inch. I'm going to line up that 1/4 inch line that I nestled my needle in and put that right over the stitching line I just made. And I think you can see that it comes in there right where it should, and it's just perfect.